And and let me share my screen also. And let me know once you are able to see my screen. Right.
Yes, it's
Ye-
visible.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So for the next 45-50 minutes, we are going to talk about retrospectives. Right. So let's start with what is your understanding about this thing called as a retrospective? What it is, why do we need it, how does it help? Anyone?
Yeah, once it's definitely about some kind of lessons learning from past experiences so that we can do better
Hmm.
course corrections, do things better, more efficient manner.
Hmm.
Kind of like an introspection, looking back.
Good, good. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, Mohit, you were saying something?
So retrospective, this word has come from Latin, basically Latin
Mhm.
word. Retro meaning back or
Mhm.
behind, while spectre means to look at. So what went uh, during our past, we
Mhm.
discuss about it, and
Mhm.
as Ranjit said, like we introspect and we
Mhm.
try to adapt changes. Maybe if I talk about Scrum, so we inspect and then we adapt accordingly, so that the mistakes we did, the learnings we had, we try to improve in future. So this is what retrospective, and it is one of the very important event in Scrum.
Mhm. Okay, good. So, and the interesting part is when all these special keywords or the words in English, most of them have a more of an origin from Latin words only, right? And that's true, right? Though and specific to Scrum, though we say that retrospective is one of the key event in Scrum, right? But I have a different opinion. I always say that it may be one of the most ignored event in Scrum, right? People don't do it at all, right? They skip it very often, right? But that's okay. That's their job. Okay, so but if you go to the base, right, or the basics, right? If you look at the agile principle, if you go to the agilemanifesto.org, there is a principle number 12, right? And this is what it says, right? And what it is trying to say, it is talking about retrospective, right? Scrum has given it a name called as a sprint retrospective, but this principle talks about the doing that retrospective, looking back, maybe discussing what went well, what didn't go well, right? That's what the retrospective is, right? And that's where when we talk about any of those frameworks method, so they are more or less aligned with these agile principle, right? So and now the next thing is why do we need retrospective? Let's start with that, right? So what do you think, why do we need retro? How does it help? Yeah, Priyanka.
Basically, in agile methodology, at the end of the sprint, we follow the retrospective to
Mhm.
review the entire sprint, what we did well and what didn't go well.
Mhm.
So basically, both of the perspective are being discussed, plus or minus. So it will help to enhance another following sprint in such a way. So that is the most beneficial point that is I see.
Mhm. Okay, fair enough, fair enough, right?
I
So
think answer is there in the screen which you're showing right now.
uh-huh,
The team reflects on how to become more effective.
uh-huh.
So we discussed like what did not went well,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then we just do the adjustments, and
Mhm.
then we become a better person or better as a team, like in
Mhm.
upcoming sprints.
Yep, that's true. That's true. Very true. One thing I would like to clarify here, whenever we talk about retrospective, the general assumption is that it is related to Scrum, right? If you are doing Scrum, then only then you have to do the retrospective. Actually, that is not true. Irrespective of whatever you are doing, retrospective could be maybe a generic thing, right? Maybe generic, it's part of your continuous improvement, right? Even people doing the teams doing waterfall, they can also do the retrospective, right? So nothing wrong with it. When it comes to the why part, I think you all know a lot of things, right? But I have something different also, or you may already be aware of these things, right? So when we say why retrospective, we always talk about team. Actually, it's not just about the team, right? Doing retrospective actually improve. It helps us in improving our processes. It helps in improving our product quality, right? It helps us in improving our overall delivery life cycle, and that actually improves the customer satisfaction. Ultimately, it goes to the customer satisfaction, right? Now, talking about the current scenario, right? I think I understand maybe there are organizations who have started doing maybe more of an 100% work from office, but there are a lot of organizations who are more of in a hybrid mode, right? If you are working in half of your team remotely, half in the office, right? Doing these regular cadence actually helps in developing that cohesion. It brings that team bonding, right? And when you are in a retrospective session, we are talking about what went well, what didn't go well. We are talking about our conflict. We are talking about our team bonding. Actually, it helps in developing that emotional intelligence also between the team members. And we all know that during most of these meetings, right? And especially when you talk about retrospective is in a very informal setup, right? It helps us in maybe understanding each other better. And what does it mean? It actually helps us in maybe understanding or maybe listening or hearing the non-verbal communication, right? And similarly, there are so many other points I have written. For example, reducing the employee turnover. If you're doing your retrospective well, if people are seeing progress, they are seeing that, hey, every retrospective we are making progress, we are improving as a team, we are improving as in a group or the organization. It keeps your similar to your customer satisfaction. It actually satisfies your employees also. And when your employees are happy, their overall turnover may be low, right? And in a retrospective session, when we come up with those action items, we ask people to own them. It's the team who are going to own them, right? And that actually brings the ownership and the accountability, right? So retrospective is not just about spending an hour, maybe coming listing down what went well, what didn't go well, and then move on. No, there are a lot of hidden things which comes as a part of your retrospective. If you're doing your retrospective well, there are so many things which are happening behind the scene, right? It actually helps you in with shifting your overall culture of the organization, right? When teams are in a retrospective, they have a problem, they face something in the last sprint. Now they want to solve it, right? And that's where they come up with their more of an innovative ideas. How can we solve them, right? That foster the creativity and the innovation. Obviously it requires some maybe more of an organization support or the leadership support also. That's true, but it actually foster that creativity and the innovation thinking in the team, right? So if you go one by one against all these bullet points, right, this will actually brings in a different perspective about why do we need retrospective. Anyone would like to add apart from these things? And this is not the entire list, right? There are so many other things beyond these. So would you like to add anything into it?
No, Sanjay, I think it's very insightful. Um, because the typical way we look at it, right? We talk about continuous improvement, we have these benefits, very cliched kind of things, right? Well, that is the objective over there. There are all these underlying aspects which we are getting, right?
Yep.
Which are unsaid and maybe not even um, known as much. It's the team cohesion that you mentioned, especially on in the current remote ways of working. Then organizational, cultural, or mindset kind of behaviors. All of these being influenced through these connects is really, I think, very quite an insightful one. I think that's a good way of putting this. Actually, I like that.
Sure. Thank you.
I think one point I would like to add is, Sanjay, like I think these days it's getting popular also because I'm seeing in lot many forums is agile way of working or
Mhm.
working agreement
Hmm.
improves
Yeah,
if we
yeah.
do the retrospective. So but again it can come like under this point, enhanced remote cohesion. It can like combine with that. And even one another point would be value, uh,
Mhm.
like value proposition. Like as a team, when we do retrospective, we build emotional intelligence. We are bonded together. So some or the other way we are moving towards, if we are in norming state, then we are moving towards storming states. Like if if this event is run effectively, what I
Yep,
believe.
yep. That's true. That's true. Thanks for sharing. Right. So this is the why part. Now, obviously there are challenges associated with the retrospective, right? And there are a lot, right? So I have captured some of them, right? And you can add more to it, right? The very first, the lack of participation, right? People don't want to attend it at all. They don't want to do it at all. There may be different reasons for it, but they don't feel interested in it. Once the sprint, especially if you're talking about scrum, when the sprint review is over, they for them the sprint is over. Now go, let's start with the next sprint. Let's relax now and we will start the next sprint tomorrow, right? And the other thing is there are cases where maybe in a group of 10 people there may be two or three who are always dominating the retrospective. They will be talking a lot, and they have valid point, no doubt about it, right? But it's not just about those two or three, right? It doesn't mean the rest of the team members doesn't have anything to add. They always have. The third, repetitiveness and the staleness. I think this may be one of the key reason I have seen people lose interest in the retrospective. If every retrospective they are going and they are repeating or they are keep talking about the same thing again and again without getting any resolution, then they feel that, hey, this doesn't add any value, right? Inadequate follow-up, right? We have come up with an action item, we did something, right? But during the sprint, everyone gets busy with their so-called user story or the work, right? And no one is interested in the action item from the retrospective. And when we go to the next the next retrospective, we again say have the same thing. So we need someone, or maybe as in a team, we have to do we have to have the follow-up mechanism. Time constraint always, right? The moment sprint review is over, you always get some feedback from your stakeholder. So people say that, hey, let's quickly jump into the next sprint planning. And they ignore the retrospective. Or if they want to, it may be just 15-minute quick discussion. Hey, do you have anything to share? Anything to share? Anything you would like to call out? No, none. The other interesting part is it's more about the facilitation part, right? Maybe your scrum master, your coach, or maybe team lead, whatever whomsoever is doing it, right? People may not have that skill, right? And that actually end up in having a really bad retrospective, right? People lose interest in it. Insufficient preparation, we get into the retrospective without preparing anything. We want to talk about some really big thing, but we don't have any data to justify it. That's not the right way, right? Or even if we do without that preparation, we end up doing more of a surface level analysis. We don't do any deep dive, right? And the moment the retro is over, people, I think no one having a time to actually do a deep dive once the sprint starts. Sometimes it may be more of on the organization level cultural issue also, right? People don't feel safe talking about those issues in front of the group, right? As an organization, they are not ready to make even a small change that may require a complete approval from the higher authority. The echo chamber effect is when people are talking about the same thing. Everyone is talking about just one or two the similar kind of thing, and they are saying just, oh, whatever Mohit is saying, I think that's the right thing, or I also have the same issue. We are not getting in a diverse perspective or diverse opinion on something, and that may be because of an artificial harmony in the team, right? And there may be more challenges, right? But these are the few of them which I have seen, right? How about you? What do you have seen? as a challenge in the retrospective?
I have observed that people often feel retrospectives are boring and ineffective.
Right.
So that is the first barrier they get when we impose that we need to do some retrospective in current project or anything. But the first resistance come up with the team that we doesn't need it. So to convince them, that is the first challenge I feel.
No, very true, Priyanka. That happens. Yep. And again, there could be no reasons for it. The reason for it is they are not getting any value out of it. They may be raising some issues, but those issues are not getting solved. Right? Or maybe the kind of issues we are raising, those may not be in our control at all.
Actually, in my organization, we have never conducted any retrospective in any project. I'm in the IT industry.
Uh,
So after learning so many things and after observing the things, I insisted the management that we need retrospective.
mhm.
But the thing is, they are so busy in delivering to the customer that they feel like we don't need it. Why
Yeah,
do we need to spend 1 or 1.5 hours in talking about what to do and how we went well, nothing like that. So it is the first concern that I need to convince them that it is necessary.
yep.
They think like it is an unnecessary event and we
Yep.
may skip it.
And they may be talking a lot about the continuous improvement, right? We have to continuously improve, right? We have to build that culture of innovation or the
Yes.
creativity, right? Then how
Yes.
would you do that if you are not spending time on it?
Yes, and even if they have tried for a few
Hmm.
projects, then people don't participate it. That is the
Participate.
first thing because
Yeah.
they resist to speak up in front of all of
Uh,
the other teammates and in front of a higher management that we face some kind of challenges and we need to look into that. But
hmm.
people don't speak up, so that is the issue.
I agree. Okay. Yeah, Ranjit, you were saying something.
No, no, the challenges I think you listed, right? Of
Uh,
which I think the bigger challenge is to get people to participate,
uh,
right? And it may not be a hesitation in, I mean, I don't not it may not be the interest,
mhm,
right? It is getting them to open up. And like
mhm,
you said, there will be those two people who, maybe you need to keep them under control, right? As a facilitator, you need to control, at the same time not demotivate them. Like you said, there are a lot of valid points coming there also, but at the same time you want everybody to be engaged. That's a big challenge, which I typically see, right? So as much as psychological safety that you put, you give the assurance of, and you basically try to open, that becomes a, and that kind of drags the whole thing because you're trying to get somebody to talk about it, right? And then they don't open up. That's the bigger one I
No, no,
typically see.
very true. And though we talk about the psychological safety a lot, right? I don't know how to provide that safety, to be honest. Right? Yeah, and
Yeah,
even it doesn't matter how much you try to convince someone, hey, you are safe, you can talk about whatever you want, but people will still not feel safe,
correct.
right? They
Yeah,
will not, right? And that's where we may have to come up with different ways of doing it, right? Why? And the challenge is we invite everyone in the room and we put them on the spot. Hey, no, talk about what went well, what didn't go well.
that's right.
That may not be the right way,
That
right?
uh,
So I
um,
cannot I cannot. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, please complete. Please
Yeah,
complete.
I cannot speak up in front of maybe 10 other people,
Hmm.
right? Or especially in case if one of them is maybe my reporting manager, right?
Correct.
Or maybe someone senior, right? Or I know that this person is very close to my reporting manager. If I say something here,
Correct.
that information may go to my manager also, right?
Uh,
That
I'm, I feel
uh,
more often than not, I
mm,
see situations where what will I be judged on
yeah,
when I speak, right? That
right.
fear, that fear is holding back people, right? So,
Very,
sometimes you have to say that, okay, you bring out some basic stuff, no problem. We can do that, right? That fears is holding back is what I typically see. Another one is also the actions, right? See, if you're not deliberating enough to take it to that action plan, that is a demotivating factor. I think you mentioned it. However, there are some folks who are maybe little too much rigid about the solutions, right? My way or the highway kind of way also, right? So what happens is there is a thin line between retrospection and brainstorming for ideation for solution to retrospection and going to the same old, maybe a traditional way of looking. How do you break that, right? That becomes a challenge.
Right, right. Very true. Very true. And that's where I would say there are two things we can do, right? Maybe one is obviously the facilitation part of it,
Yeah.
right? We may have to use different technique. For example, in case if the people are not opening up, right? They are not, they may be scared of anything, right? So rather than asking them to put anything on in front of 10 people, how about maybe using maybe that silent writing technique? Give them in a sticky note, let them write on it, and then maybe the facilitator can open it up, right? Without actually obviously no one will get to know that who wrote what, right?
But they are
That's one.
getting engaged. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Second is, I think in those cases I generally recommend, maybe when it talks about whether I will be judged or not, right? In that case, maybe the leaders making themselves a bit vulnerable, right? They standing up and coming forward, hey, this is what I did, right? Which was not the right thing to do, or maybe which didn't go well,
But
right?
I didn't know this, basically, just
Yeah, yeah.
the mindset of that. Yeah.
Right. So that may be the other way. But again, it depends on the, again, goes back to the organization cultural part of it, maybe the individuals in that organization, so how they take it, right? But these things are there. But still, I would say, even if the culture issue is there, or maybe there are so many other things, but if you have a good facilitator, he or she can still bring in a lot of value to the retrospect using different techniques.
Right.
Right. Okay. Moving on, right? Let's talk about maybe practices. I think you already know some of it. Very first thing, I think we have to retrospective is in a specific event. It's not in a maybe in a ad hoc or casual thing, right? We have to prepare for it. Whomsoever is going to facilitate it, that person should prepare for the retrospective, right? Set in a clear agenda. This is the way we are going to run, right? Maybe 60 minutes, whatever time you have. And as a part of that agenda, there should be a ground rules and the meeting agreement also part of it. Right? It could be as simple as, hey, whatever we are going to discuss in this room, that should remain within the room. Make it very explicit, right? And remind people about it. Hey, this is what we agreed, even at the start of the meeting and at the end of the meeting. Right? I understand people, though there may be cases where people talk about it after, even outside of the room. But if you remind them, I think that may make them a bit conscious. Right? Focus on actionable outcome. That the thing I have seen is people talk a lot, right, for the entire 60 minutes or maybe whatever time is. By end of it, there is no action item. Right? No one knows what to do next. Right? And that's again goes to the facilitator. The end of the retrospective, there should be some actionable outcome. This is what we are going to do. And once those actionable outcome are there, then we should have a follow-up mechanism also for it. How we are going to do it, or do a follow-up on it. If you are doing Scrum, you may want to put it in your sprint backlog, so that maybe every sprint or daily Scrum you want to talk about it, right? Or maybe during your refinement session you want to talk about it. That's up to you to decide, but there should be a follow-up mechanism for it. Put in a sticky note or maybe the card in your Jira or whatever tool you are using with a different tag, different color, right? As a part of retrospective, evaluate the retrospective process itself, how the retrospective session went. Right? Maybe at the end, maybe 60-second very quickly. Hey, how was the retrospective session between 1 to 5? Keep rotating your facilitator. Right? Generally, people, especially those who are doing Scrum, they think that it's the Scrum Master who is going to do all the retrospective. May not be. Right? Scrum Master may or may not be an expert on it. And people always looking at the Scrum Master, people will get bored. Right? How about maybe we rotate that? Right? The team members, the product owner may bring in a new facilitation technique. How about inviting even an external facilitator who can be more neutral as compared to even your Scrum Master? Doing in a theme-based retrospective, right? And I think all of you know there are different tools and maybe templates available which on the themes. Use those. Change the setting. Change the setting. We mean you don't have to do the retrospective in the same room for the maybe 8 or 10 sprint. Keep changing that room. Maybe doing once in a cafe, maybe once in your canteen, right? Maybe on a roof, right? That environment also impacts the overall meeting outcome, right? So these are some of it. But how about you? What are the different practice do you use?
I do set a stage
Right.
by conducting some icebreakers, some team building activities, so that team get some energizers, and then start the retro. This is my style.
Very true. Good. Good.
Yeah, so icebreaker very much important depending on the group, but also a pulse check starting and the end.
Yeah.
Like you said, right? How you start with in the end. So the energy levels, and then generally the feedback also is very much connected with that, right? You feel that you have achieved something as a team when you see that at the beginning where you are and towards the end how you the energy levels how they have actually improved. Right? Then sometimes on the way, especially we try not to keep this too long. That's one important aspect. But if it does have to be like in a workshop mode for quite long time, then we also try to see in between. Those breaks are there. Again, it's some kind of, cooling sessions kind of thing, a way to move away from what you were discussing, that come back afresh, that also.
Yep, that's true. Very true. Right. And people use different techniques, right? That depends on your facilitation skill, right? But the thing is, I think what both of you prepare for it. Don't get into a retrospective just on ad hoc and unprepared, right? That will actually may not be good way of doing it. Okay, these are we always talk about the why part, the challenges, the practices, and now about the tools. Oh, so many, and there are even more, right? You may have used some of it, right? And some or not all, but maybe most of them have a free versions also. Most of them, right? So it's up to you whichever you want to use. So Priyanka, this is for you, right? You can share it with your organization,
Yes, definitely.
right? So many tools available, right? You can use whatever you want, right? And the different ways of doing it. For example, the easy retro or the idea board or Trello, these are more of the column based or the board based, right? Even Mural and Miro provide different templates. Mentimeter is more for the pulse check or the health check, right? So different ways of doing it, right?
Why have you not mentioned Confluence and Azure DevOps?
Those are I would say very very famous or maybe very basics one. Yeah.
But we often, mostly in projects, we
Uh,
use that only. So that's why.
no, I understand. I understand. I thought that people may already be aware of it, so there may be something new. Right. Very true. Good. So that's
Sanjay,
about
just
yeah.
to share,
Uh,
right? So I was a mural person till I got into my role, and then it
uh,
was that, right? But
uh,
then Digite, right? Digite has come up with a nimble retro
oh,
tool,
okay. Okay.
and that one is, so while Digite makes project management tools they're known for, there's
Hmm.
a nimble retro which they've created especially for retrospection.
Hmm.
So the end-to-end flow of a retrospection, not just a templates, right?
Hmm.
So you can change your initial part, you can time it, how
Hmm.
the voting, right? How you do dot voting, all those things has been
Hmm.
inbuilt into a end-to-end.
Oh,
I
good.
felt that to be quite good because it's meant only for retrospections like
Right.
that.
Very, very good. Very good.
And I believe they have also put some AI part as well, and it's quite intelligent as well. What they are doing, Ranjit. Uh,
I'm not sure about that because the version that I had seen, I mean, at least a couple of months back, has been just it's a kind of like a workflow, and then you go along with it kind of. So it's quick that way to do it, and this one in a very easy, intuitive kind of way. But the action item part and all those other, maybe that's where the AI comes in. Probably it helps. Yeah.
Mm.
Interesting.
Yep, yep, good, noted. And when it about after the tools, when it comes to books, I didn't find many. Actually, I have read this from the first one, the Agile Retrospective by Esther Derby and Diana Larson. It's in a long back, right? And this Improving Agile Retrospective by Mark Loffer. So this is seems to be good. Rest all are more of a template driven. Anyone has read any of these books?
No.
So, Mohit, you were talking about the set the stage and gather the data. All this is from this book only, right? The entire template is defined in this book. So it may be 7, 8 years back when I read this book. So it's all about retrospective and nothing specific to Scrum, by the way. It's a general retrospective, right? But there are there are other, but we don't have to read books as well. But there are so many articles, blogs available even on internet, which about the retrospective, right? And the next thing I said about the questions. So when we say retrospective, it's not about just asking those 3 questions: what went well, what didn't go well. We can actually rephrase those questions in a different way, right? So what I did is I have prepared few questions against these themes, right? So these questions can be asked during the retrospective, right? And maybe you can create in a survey, you can prepare in a spider chart, and we don't have to go for all 50 in one way, maybe just in the theme wise, right? Let's talk about our process only, or maybe the team dynamics, right? So maybe just a sample. I was still refining these, right? You may want to read some of them. I will be sharing this in a PDF format with all of you. Don't worry, right? And there are more. Um,
So I think we can define our own verticals, and based on that, we
yeah,
can create questions.
yeah, exactly. You can have more specific question related to that, and it can be maybe one of the theme for your retrospective.
Is there a way to evaluate our retro?
Evaluate in the sense,
Like how did our retro went?
hmm, I'm not sure about the external part, but I think if you remember, we said that how about maybe reviewing the retro itself, maybe getting the feedback on our retro. That will be from the participants only, right? By end of before closing the retro, maybe last 120 60 second or 120 second, asking them for their feedback, right? How was the retro, right? And what should we change for the next retro, right? It's more of a doing in a retrospective of the retrospective, right? That's it I'll have. And along with it, what I'm doing is I am working on few questions. I will be putting them on a Google Doc. I will be sharing them with you all. It's more about the retrospective, not necessarily specific to Scrum, but in general about the retrospective, right? The concept of the retrospective, and it's more of a quiz kind of thing. So you can just play with it, right? You may want to use it for your own reference also, right? That's what I have about the retrospective. You want to add anything? That's it.
I think it was very nice, Sanjay. Good to have the chat. Good to hear from the participants also experiences. That is good. Related to the questions and this part, right? I think finally it is about the questions are also kind of leading to what should the team be doing,
Yep, yep,
focusing on?
yep.
What are the aspects of a good team, collaborative team, a motivated team? All those aspects are being touched upon there, right? So in a way, if there is any customization that is needed to the, let's say, align with the values of the organization, then that could be probably one dimension that could be there. And again, these questions will align to one or the other of it, right? So there is a lot of, I think, flexibility at the same time, power from that also. I see.
No, no, very true, and that's a good point. And that's where this may be again maybe one of the different facilitation way, or maybe different way of doing that, facilitating your retro also, right? We don't have to always go within a standard way. This may be one of the theme, right? And that could be more
Absolutely.
specific to my organization, my team, or maybe my project, right? Let's
Right.
talk about those things.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always say that, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Please continue.
So I always say that there are so many other things we can talk about, right? For example, we always, especially for those who are doing Scrum, right? We talk about that Scrum values, right? So people may have they think about it, they know about it, but I don't know how much we follow it, or maybe how much we actually agree to it. So about in one of the retrospective, we talk about those 5 values, right? And let's come up with our own definition of those 5 values. What does commitment mean to us as a team? What does courage mean to us as a team? Right? Come up
Yeah.
with that definition, and then maybe doing a self-assessment on those definition
Yeah.
as a team. Where do we as a team stand on those things, right? And then creating in a spider chart, right? And then maybe, hey, we are good on the courage and the commitment part, but we are not so good on the focus, right? Then how to improve our focus?
Yeah.
Then like, prepare an action item for our team itself.
That itself can be a retrospective. Yeah. Really.
That can,
Yeah.
right? It can be a retro item, right? We don't have to always talk about just the project issues.
Right. Right.
Right, and that's, you may have heard, and this is for you, Priyanka. People may always talk about, hey, we don't have anything to improve, our project is going okay, right? So let's do something different. I have so many other ideas,
Yes.
right?
I recently had a situation like I'm managing an account right now. So
Uh-huh.
Scrum Masters and product owners, they do report me. So I do talk to stakeholders. So one of the product manager with whom I'm talking, and the team, they did a retro. Okay, and they shared their review. I mean, whatever feedback and actions to the product owner, like who is our client. But client took it in another way, like in a negative way, like because she has typical traditional mindset, or some maybe you can call it old school. And next time when retro happened, nobody was interacting and nobody was interested. Now this lady came to me that I told that, like, if you need any assistance, just let me know. I can help you, like if in terms of any scrum ceremonies or anything, if you want to assess or if you need any help, I can. So she asked me that she needs assistance in retro because nobody is coming up. I knew the background. See, this is the background, team is not comfortable. So I suggested them that do one thing, you create your own points retro because people are not speaking. Now you assess yourself what went well and what did not went well, and try to put that and try to put in front of the team if they're not coming up, and then see if they are speaking or not. Team started speaking on it, and I think it was an interactive session. This was the feedback I got. So I think sometimes you need to innovate and you need to try things, experiment things, just to help team to speak out, or when they're not comfortable, try to make them comfortable, what I feel.
Yep, yep. You can do in a lot of things in the as a part of it. So many things. It's all depend on how much creative you are.
I think theme based is also good, like what I
Yep.
feel, because uh, having the same set of vertical is not good, because it's quite monotonous and boring sometimes. So it's always, if we have some theme based, like in Diwali, I do conduct a special one with different verticals. So that's like, and people like it, team like it. So
Exactly, and that's where I say that hey, how about coming up with your own theme rather than copy pasting it from somewhere? The way you mentioned, how about having in a during the Diwali season, having the retro based on the Diwali theme itself, right? How about doing in a theme based on the Kalki movie, right? So something like that. Come up with your own theme, right? You have to spend some time. You have to be a bit innovative and creative, right? You have to come, and then people will like, hey, every time when and people will start waiting for the retro. Hey, I don't know what is coming up in this retro, right? You have to make it a bit interesting. That's the whole idea. Okay, good. Anything else from anyone?
I think I want to like talk something else maybe at the end, like Sanjay separately.
Okay, not a problem. You can give me a call immediately after it, Mohit. Not a problem.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Sure. Okay, I think then we are good. And I will be sending everything in the email, so nothing to worry. Right. And thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for joining. I hope it was worth your time.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was
Yes.
delightful. Thanks very much, Sanjay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Sanjay.
Thank you, all of you.
Bye. Mohit, call me on my phone here.
Sure, I will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.